take his gag out. It's more fun with the screaming. Here's a look at the new Trick or Treat Studios, House of a Thousand Corpses, Showtime Baby Firefly, and Fish Boy. Vera Ellen is a key member of the Firefly family. She has been linked to several disappearances and suspect murders. Investigators believe she leverages her looks and charisma to lure unsuspecting victims back to the Firefly hideouts, location unknown. Boo-boo-ba-doo. Before we get a closer look at Showtime Baby Firefly, let's go ahead and grab the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. And though while I'm also doing this, let me go ahead and thank the folks over at Trick or Treat Studios that did take the time and provide the sample of Baby Firefly, as well as all the rest of the Wave 2 House of a Thousand Corpses retro figures we could have a look at in this channel. I'll provide links down below if you guys are interested to get this one or the entire collection for yourself. In the meantime, though, when it comes to certainly standing the figure, she's going to have a little harder time to stand, but she still managed to stand at 5.5 inches in height, or Baby Firefly is 14 centimeters tall. One correction, though, I did want to make from my review of the finger-licking, pistol-whipping Captain Spaulding, who I can actually now bring in for comparisons, of course. We're going to bring him in right now. Is I believe I did mention in his review that he was the only figure that actually had a working gimmick. That's not 100% true. In fact, all of the House of Thousand Corpses Wave 2 figures, short of actually Showtime Baby Firefly, all have a gimmick to some extent. It's either a part that adds on to the figure or the figure itself has something that's working as a gimmick. Again, Baby Firefly seems to be the only exception to that. And while maybe missing a working feature, Baby Firefly still manages to get a Build-A-Figure piece to start our building of Tiny Firefly. In fact, we can have a look at the leg right now. The leg will, of course, be one part of many parts that are all going to come together to get ourselves a tiny Firefly. And just to say tiny, I mean, just to put the leg next to Baby Firefly to see just how tall that's going to be. The leg goes almost to about her shoulders, so it's going to be a pretty tall figure. Detail-wise, there's really a lot of cool stuff that they've added to this. Some grime, some dirt, some sweat, whatever else that's settled onto the pants of Tiny Firefly. We don't have a whole lot to work with right now. So we're going to move that accessory out of the way. One other thing that the figure comes also included with as well is Bill Hudley's Fish Boy. Oh, poor Dwight. This was what ended up happening when he left the office, actually. I think this took place before the office. And well, we do have a very small-looking Fish Boy. I do like and appreciate the fact that they would have taken the time to include this. It seems, though, to be all hard plastic. So Fish Boy, while there seems to be cuts there in the neck and in the shoulders, Fish Boy, poor Bill Hudley, does actually have no articulation to speak of. Again, the detailing is pretty good for more of a simplistic looking side accessory. I just, again, love the fact that they would have included this along with the figure. I'm going to move that also to the side. Now picking, though, up Showtime Baby Firefly. Now, this is Baby Firefly, of course, where she does that dance number, I want to be loved by you, just you, and nobody else but you. I think right there, I would have thought that something was a little bit off. Not that walking not into the house probably would have been that first indication, but I think when she started to break out a dance number, I probably should have left right away. Obviously, the rest of the patrons didn't leave right away, and Bill Hudley, of course, becomes Fish Boy as a result of that. But getting a closer look at the face, it's a really interesting face, a head sculpt here, of course, of Showtime Baby Firefly. Baby Firefly has several looks in the movie, but I guess this is the one that most people tend to think of right away. Of course, when she goes into Devil's Reject, she's not wearing this outfit at all. I do like the look of the silver suit that they've given her, a very long, flowing dress. Of course, it does make any bit of the posability on this figure null and void. I mean, there's no posability other than really just, again, like the arms. There's also some head articulation also as well. But for what I would believe to be more of a retro figure, that's something you could have expected to see maybe on the toy aisles in the 1980s. And you think to yourself, well, wait a minute, why? I can't see a House of a Thousand Corpses figure being on the toy shelves. Just remember other properties like Aliens and other things that actually got themselves toy lines, legitimate toy lines. So like the head sculpt wise, though, being a little more on the simpler side, does have, again, some really nice details. She does have, again, like in this case, like in the movie, those tiny little lips there on the front of her face that are painted in red lipstick. She got some nice outlining there of eyeshadow, I guess eyeliner. She's got some little eyelashes also there as well. And matching the dress, she also has a little headpiece, or a little, I don't know if that would be a crown. He has that also sculpted on the top of her head as well. Hair-wise is pretty good. I mean, they've kept to more of just a simple single coat. I'm guessing kind of a reddish-brown color. There doesn't seem to be a lot of extra paint that's afforded to this figure. I don't think it necessarily needs it either. The whole idea is that these figures are supposed to look like, again, like those retro figures. Now, I did mention earlier that the figure's going to have a little bit more of a harder time to stand, and a lot of it can be contributed to the fact that, first of all, when you look at her body is very tapered off down at the bottom here, an hourglass figure, yes, but with such a very small little footprint and then tiny little feet underneath. The feet are then broken up by the front sections of her shoes and, of course, the back sections of her heel, but with no providing of holes at all in the bottoms of her shoes, she's going to have a little harder time to balance. There also seems to be a strange sort of cutout here, where it looks like the feet probably were a separate piece that they would have attached to the bottom of the dress. I'm not sure why they would have attached that as a separate piece and not just molded the whole thing together. But either way, though, the figure, because of that smaller footprint, does have a slightly harder time to stand. You sort of have to balance her a bit, though, on those tiny little tootsies. And she seems to stand okay, providing you don't move her around. It also does throw the balance off the figure just a little bit, because, again, like she does have the shoulder articulation. If you bring the arms out, for example, you sort of have to really get them in just that right way. If you kind of have them a little leaning forward, then she sort of has, well, again, she seems to be standing okay. So I guess balancing issues isn't as big of a problem, providing, again, you're not going to be putting her on a shelf where any bit of banging is going to necessarily occur. For, again, the articulation, actually, one last thing we can also look at as well is the fact that they did take the time to paint the nails there also on all the 4 fingers and the thumb there as well. So a nice little touch of detail. Dress does actually look really, really good. With, again, the pose that they decided to pose this figure in, it really does mean that when you are putting this guy, or putting poor Firefly, baby Firefly here, in any other pose, when you have the arms out, it sort of does give a sort of awkwardness to the way that they've sculpted these. So really, if anything, you may want to just keep the arm straight flat like this. At the very least, you might be able to just bring the arm out like this if she's maybe welcoming the people in for her show. Again, I would recommend leaving right away. All in all, again, it's a little more of a simpler looking figure. I think when you compare, like, for example, to Captain Spaulding, maybe perhaps baby Firefly isn't as super detailed. Certainly is missing the gimmick that Captain Spaulding had. And one of the fun things about Captain Spaulding is that he did have that, finger-licking, pistol-whipping action, of course, incorporated into the legs, where you squeeze the legs and the arms would flip up and down. Baby Firefly doesn't necessarily have that, but what she does have instead is, again, like the more simplistic-looking details to the figure, which, again, I think work quite well with this line so far. I suppose before we actually jump over to the final looks here of baby Firefly, I did also want to bring in the packaging once again. I love the packaging that Trick or Treat Studios have done for all this figure line. You can see here on the front, you shouldn't have done that. So you can see a nice image once again of baby Firefly. I would love to see these get used for something else. And I was maybe even mentioning also in Captain Spaulding's review t-shirts, but also even just stickers. If they were to find a way to make these into just decals that they could sell separately, like a set of House of a Thousand Corpses stickers, yes please. Though flipping around on the back, also once again we have the Tootin' Effin' Fruity proof of purchase. I still don't know whether I should be cutting this out, saving this, whether they're going to be a mail away at some point. I do also like the fact that they did include also a bonus gruesome freak poster cutout. Speaking of Fish Boy that we looked at earlier, so that's a nice little touch also as well. And still, while maybe not necessarily being a specific file card, one that's very deliberately a file card, I might still decide to cut these out though and still save them with the one that I already cut out for Captain Spaulding. We now resume with our regularly scheduled final looks here of baby Firefly, of course, with Fish Boy in tow. One thing I did want to also mention about these figures is that each of the individual House of a Thousand Corpses retro figures are $19.99 over on Trick or Treat's website. Though if you start to take the tally, we're only going to be looking at 4 figures, and each of the figures only come with a limb. So you may be then asking yourself, well, where's the torso of tiny Firefly? If you guys are interested to get yourself the entire set, don't overlook getting yourself the collector's case, because not only is the collector's case going to be the place that you can actually store all your figures if you're not planning to put them on the shelf, but it's also going to come included with the final piece, the required piece, the torso and head of tiny Firefly, which we will be looking at in an upcoming review. The collector's case, while the other figures are $19.99, the collector's case is $29.99, so $10 more will get you the collector's case and, of course, the torso and head to tiny Firefly, which, again, we will be looking at in an upcoming review. What do you guys think of baby Firefly? Let me know down below in the comments section. And also, let me throw this out as a video question for you guys, is of the 3 films that Rob Zombie did of the Firefly trilogy, which one would you say is your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments section. And once again, a big thank you to the folks over at Trick or Treat Studios that provided the sample of the brand new House of a Thousand Corpses Showtime Baby Firefly and Fish Boy. We can have a look at this review. Speaking of reviews, if you don't mind me saying, if you enjoyed the one you just finished watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification so that you're here for the next time we have a look at another Firefly figure, which should be coming up right around the corner. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.